Hi, I'm Marianne Meed Ward, a downtown resident and journalist and a candidate for Ward 2 in the upcoming municipal election in Burlington on October 25th. One of the key issues in this election is development. Many of you have told me that you're concerned that development right now is too heavily weighted in favor of developers' interests and not enough in terms of community interests. That's one of the key reasons that I'm running. We can strike a better balance between the needs of developers and the needs of the community. We're not opposed to development. In fact, we've seen a lot of good development in the downtown in recent years. But many of you are concerned that we're reaching a tipping point and that we're about to compromise the unique character and charm of Burlington that drew many of us to live here in the first place. It's critical that we get this balance right because there's a lot more development coming to the downtown. We're going to talk about some of those projects and what I do differently as your councillor. The red dots on your screen show some of the developments that have been planned or approved in the downtown and surrounding neighbourhoods in Ward 2, and that runs from Guelph Line to Maple Avenue south of the QEW. The city aims to add 100 new units in the next 20 years. That's potentially 20 more dots on your screen. Now there's a couple of reasons why the city's under pressure to grow. First, city spending. The city needs tax revenue and development fees. And second, provincial places to grow legislation. That says that growth must occur inside urban boundaries to protect our green belt and to use existing infrastructure. Now, places to grow is often blamed for bad development, but there's an awful lot of leeway. City Council determines where development goes and what it looks like. And the legislation says that growth must respect the character of existing neighborhoods. We can achieve those intensification targets without compromising the character of our communities. And the development behind me on Pearl Street, where I'm standing, is a good example. There were a couple of older cottages in this area, and now there are 17 townhomes that blend well into the neighborhood. We've achieved intensification without destroying our neighborhood. And that's the first principle of balanced development that I want to talk to you about, respecting the character of existing neighborhoods. But on far too many projects, that's simply not happening, and we're going to talk about some of those. A good one to start is along the waterfront. I'm standing on Old Lakeshore Road in the area of our waterfront east of Brant Street. In 2007, current City Council quietly changed the official plan for this area to allow as many as 4 buildings ranging from 8 to 15 stories high. The area currently has 2-story buildings, many of which are important heritage properties. Now, there's no question the area could use a facelift, but many of you have said you envision something that looks a little closer to Niagara-on-the-Lake, something historic, pedestrian-friendly, and smaller in scale, instead of a sea of high-rises. But that's exactly where we're headed, especially when you add the development here to developments that have been already built or planned for right around here on Lakeshore Road. Just down the way where the Riviera Motel now sits, Council has already approved a 22-story building and 2 7-story buildings right on the waterfront. Across the street on the north side of Lakeshore Road are 2 apartment buildings ranging from 12 to 17 stories high. Now, most of us don't have an issue with those buildings on the north side of the road. They're away from the waterfront and they bring more businesses and residents to the downtown. But when you add it all together, our waterfront is going to end up looking more like Toronto Harbourfront. And our city deserves better. Even worse, you weren't consulted before these changes were made. There was one public meeting before the official plan was changed, and the designs that residents were shown were much smaller in scale and size to what was eventually approved. And residents within only 120 meters of the project were notified. And yet our waterfront is a citywide issue. When many of you found out about the changes, 2,000 of you from across the city joined with me to form the Save Our Waterfront movement. We're looking for a community-led vision for this area. We've been successful so far in securing a Citizens Advisory Committee on the waterfront, which will look at development from across the city along our waterfront. And that wouldn't have happened without you stepping up and adding your voice, so thank you for that. But on far too many projects, there's poor community input. That's one of the first principles of balanced development, is that we consult with the community. And that's one of my goals and commitments if elected your councillor. But on far too many projects, the community isn't consulted early and they're not consulted meaningfully. Let's talk about one of them over in the Caroline area of the downtown. I'm standing in front of the Carriage Gate development, which was unanimously approved by City Council in June. This development features an 8-story medical center, an 8-story parking garage, and a 17-story apartment. Now, most of us welcome the medical center as a great addition to the downtown, but the parking garage is a missed opportunity. We should be putting parking underground so that we can save above-ground space for more shops and services. And the 17-story building is simply out of scale to the neighborhood, which features primarily 2-story residential homes. And it's 4 times the official plan for this area. And how were you consulted before these changes were made? Well, there was one public meeting, about 100 of us attended, and expressed concerns about the scale of the apartment. By the time the second public meeting was scheduled, a week before that, city staff and our downtown councillor told us that they had already decided to support the project. And this despite repeatedly telling us he shared our concerns about the scale of the apartment. Well, a number of us dutifully attended that second meeting and we gave our input. But we did feel that our efforts were rather futile since minds had already been made up. Our city deserves better. As your councillor, my goal is to seek early and meaningful public input before development decisions are made. And I'm already doing that through my free community newsletter, which you can sign up by phone or email to receive. And I've also helped many residents over the years bring your input to City Hall. And I'll continue to do that once elected. Now, there's 2 other projects I'd like to share with you. There are 2 final projects that I'd like to talk to you about. The Molinaro project on Maple Avenue that's already under construction, and a proposed Molinaro project here on Brock and Elgin Streets where I'm standing. On both projects, Molinaro got almost double the height and density allowed in the official plan. Now, that extra height and density is worth millions to Molinaro. In exchange, the community benefits that were negotiated is a couple of $100,000 contribution to parking and to public art. Those benefits were negotiated without your input. No one asked you whether you thought this was a fair trade. Worse, on the Maple project, Molinaro asked for and received a deferral on paying development fees at a very attractive interest rate of a couple of %. If you and I are late on our taxes, we pay closer to 16%. In addition, on the Brock project, you don't even have a vote. Our councillor owns a small rental property in the area and has declared a conflict of interest. He will not vote, and he won't try to influence the vote of other councillors on this key project in the downtown. Now, many of you are willing to accept minor changes to the official plan, but these are not minor, and they're more the rule rather than the exception. In the Queensway neighborhood, Ghent Avenue, Pine Street, again and again, developers are asking for and receiving variations to the official plan. Setting aside the official plan on an ad hoc basis just because a developer asks isn't good development. The official plan is developed with your input. It reflects the community's vision for how it wants to grow and revitalize. When the official plan is simply disregarded, the community's vision is disregarded, and we're left with no vision. Our councillor in the last 4 years has voted in favor of every major development that's come up from Walmart on forward. Our city deserves better. As your councillor, my goal will be to follow the 5 principles of balanced development that we've been talking about here. The first is to respect the character of existing neighbourhoods, and that's mandated by both provincial and municipal legislation, and as we've been talking about here, simply isn't happening right now. Second, we've got to consult the community early and meaningfully when there's a major new development coming to your neighbourhood. Third, respect the official plan. If we're going to make changes to the plan, we need to do so during the official review period, and the next opportunity is in 2011. Not on an ad hoc basis because a developer asks, which is what's happening now. Fourth, we need to keep an arm's length relationship with developers. I don't support the city serving as the developer's banker, and I don't accept campaign contributions from developers as many councillors do. Fifth, we've got to negotiate community benefits with the community present. I'll be a strong voice for your interests on council, as I don't have a conflict of interest that would prevent me from voting or trying to influence other councillors. As your councillor, my role is to balance the interests of developers with the interests and wishes of the community as we develop and grow. And we can do that by following the 5 principles of balanced development. As always, your feedback is welcome and appreciated. I'll keep you in the loop on many developments that are coming up. You can sign up to receive my free community newsletter by following the email or phone number on your screen. You can also find me on Facebook and Twitter. I'm Marianne Meed Ward in downtown Burlington, a candidate for Ward 2 in the upcoming municipal election in Burlington. I welcome your vote on October 25th to seek balanced development in our community.